I'm Monica Hutchinson, and I am a Real Talk life coach, and I help people find their voice so they can speak up for whatever they want in a way that feels good to them. And I have with me today the amazing Peter Lynch, who is a badass public speaker and, keynote speech giver and storyteller, and someone I've had the pleasure of knowing for several years now. So, Peter, I'm so psyched to have you here.
So pumped to be here as well. Thanks, Monica.
Definitely. So, Peter, talk to me. What's your story? How did you get where you are today?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. Yeah, I mean, I've had a long journey. I really started a long time ago going to college thinking I was going to do something else. I really wanted to become a professor. And so I went to the university and I was an academic counselor, and I really started down that path. But as I was doing that, I helped a friend, Roberto DeAngelis, open a restaurant in Seattle. And that's when I really started to fall in love with business. And so I recognized that the pace of higher education just kind of wasn't what I was going after. So I had met my wife at that time, and I was getting ready to move out to the Midwest. And so I thought, I want some big company experience. And so I applied with a company, Gateway Computers. Not sure if you remember the old cow-spotted boxes.
Oh, yeah.
And so I applied with them, and I became a retail trainer in one of their retail stores. And so I taught a bunch of people how to use computers. And that's kind of really where I began the whole training aspect. I've always loved speaking, but that's really where I started to work in training. From there, we moved to Denver. I got a job at Dish Network. I moved with Inco and Great West Financial, ultimately where we met. So I spent probably about 15 to 18 years in corporate America leading training and talent teams.
Yeah. And so how did you end up now doing these keynote speeches for HCI and TED Talks? I mean, it's incredible the journey that you've been on.
Yeah. I mean, great question. Again, I think so I left, as you know, I left about 16 months ago. So it's been a little while since I left. And I really spent the first 3 months focused on writing my book. So last August, I finished my book, and I was actually about ready to self-publish it. And a friend asked if he could send it to his literary agent. So he did. That agent read it, ended up signing me. So we've been going through the process since then of writing proposals, rewriting chapters, a lot of work around that. And as part of this, I always knew that one of the things I love to do more than anything is speak. And I had done a TED Talk in 2016, and we'll dig into that a little bit more. But the whole keynote piece, really, I knew I needed to build thought leadership, and I knew I love speaking. And so I have just worked my tail off talking to everybody, doing a whole lot of free speeches. The beauty of if you get in front of the right audience and you do a great job and you make an impact, it's easy to turn that into paid gigs. But a lot of times people start looking for the paid gigs, and HCI started out as something I did for free, and it really turned into something really powerful. It's given me a lot of context as well.
Yeah, I love this idea of, providing value to people and putting it out there so that they get a feel for your message. And then that's when they start being like, oh, you should be paid for actually putting this out there. And there's so much value to it. But you're right, so many people jump from the, no, I want to get paid right now, which we all, of course, want to get paid right now. There's also that audience building factor of it, too. And I'm so psyched to read your book. I know I have my pre-order in already, so that's amazing.
Yeah, it's getting exciting. One other thing, too, Monica, that is really important, too, about putting content out and doing free speeches is how important it is for building your message. So, my message today that I'm speaking on is getting really clear to me. I thought it was clear, but it wasn't. It really took me starting to fine-tune it and hone it to really understand what I'm talking about. Now I know when I go into places that I'm talking about the art of conversation, I'm talking about authenticity, and I'm talking about storytelling. And it's really nice now when people reach out to me and say, what do you do? It's super easy for me to tell them, but it took me putting a lot of content out to get there.
Yeah, so I'm hearing that your story comes to you more clearly as you engage with the audience and you get feedback from them and you see what
Yep.
resonates and you start just feeling it out and playing it out. I know a lot of people that I've talked to, Peter, really have these nerves around, oh my gosh, I have to memorize everything and I can't use notes. And I think you and I both know that yes, that's where you want to get, but it's also your
Yeah.
message is going to keep evolving as you go, and
Yeah.
it's never going to be the same, or it shouldn't be the same every single time.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of like a good comedian, you know, if you've ever followed good comedians like Seinfeld, you know, he talks a lot about how he would practice in small New York venues his material before he would do his HBO specials. Because he wanted to see what resonated with people. You know, he needed to make a big connection with people, but to do that, he needed to know what material was resonating. And so it takes a lot of practice to do that.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of a fear of public speaking, I mean, I'm sure you probably might have had some along the way, but how do you go from being afraid of public speaking to like even doing a keynote speech or a TED Talk someday?
Yeah.
Because I know this feels like such a pipe dream to so many people who are just getting started out. So how do you get
Yeah.
over that fear?
Well, just know that it's everyone's fear.
Uh-oh. Ooh, I think we might have lost Peter. Uh-oh. Peter, you're frozen. I might need you to drop and come back on because I think. Hi, Keaton. Hi, Krista. Hi, Carrie. I'm gonna hopefully see if we can get. Okay, I'm gonna add Peter back on here. Let's see if we can get him back on. Yay, technology. There you are. Uh-oh. I think I found you. There you are.
Yes. Sorry about that. Yeah, so what I was talking about, you know, it's the fear that everybody has. You know, the number one fear people have more than death is
Hmm.
public speaking. You know, so as Seinfeld used to always say, he said, people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. I mean, it's a deep fear. So first step is knowing everybody has that fear. Second step, I think, is knowing that that fear is actually what can kind of lead you into your brilliance. So every person that you see up on a stage has faced that fear and dealt with it. And what they've done is they've allowed it to create the energy and the excitement and the desire to be a great speaker. So that is really the mindset shift that I think most people have to go through. When you see somebody up on these big stages doing amazing things, just know that they have fear too. One of my mentors, Mark Sanborn, he's a New York Times bestselling author. He's one of the highest paid speakers in the world, and he has been for 20 years, 25 years. He started speaking when he was in high school. He was in FFA, and he gave a speech, and it bombed. He was horrible. And so what he said was, I'm actually gonna, I'm gonna conquer this, and I'm gonna become great. And because he chose to conquer it, he became one of the highest paid, most sought out speakers in the world. So he started from that place as well. So that's the first thing that I think is most
Yeah, and
important.
Peter, I remember just that's bringing up a lot for me, and when I had a chance to work with you is the lesson in failure, right? So that we're not all going to be awesome
Yeah,
when we first get started, and it's those failures and those lessons that make our
yeah,
stories more powerful. And so I love that you've always
yeah.
embraced that, and it sounds like that's a lesson Mark learned early on as well.
Yes, for sure.
Um,
Yeah,
And then the other piece, and actually, so Krista Kathleen is, she's in the comments there too, and she and I are working together on a public speaking program. But I know, Krista, correct me if I say this wrong, but I know
awesome.
that she says fear is just excitement without breath, which I think is really a
Oh,
great
that's good.
quote and just a great way to think of it, that it's you have fear because you're on the brink of something great. And if you can just push through that, then you can get to
That's
that
right.
greatness.
Yeah. I mean, I will say just in general in life, I mean, I'm not talking just speaking. One of the greatest things that I've done is
Mm-hmm.
run towards fear. It's taken me to the coolest places. It helped me find the best parts of myself and be the best parent and spouse and all of those things. So, you know, I'm coaching a lot of people right now, and one of the very first things I do in the first meetings is we talk about what are you afraid of, and then they share with me. And what we do is say, by the end of this, you're going to be shocked and amazed because what you're going to be doing is running towards that thing that in this meeting you don't want
Yeah.
anything to do with.
Which is so incredible. And it's such a crazy mindset shift, but that's how it opens up the doors to everything. And so I totally love that. Um,
Yeah.
how do you, so we talked a little bit about this to start with, Peter, but how do you transition then from giving the free speeches or getting your message out there to being a paid speaker?
Yep. Yeah. Again, it's a big mindset thing. So I'm a horrible salesperson because I undervalue myself and because I feel like I have kindness in me and I don't want to charge people a lot of money. But what I started to find as I worked with coaches and as I started to do things is as I undervalued myself, that people then saw me through a lens of devalue. And so the great value that I could bring, it couldn't show up because I undervalued myself. So I had to go through some personal transformation and some personal coaching. I had to get really honed in on my message and prove that I know what I'm talking about and that this can add value to people. Once I got there, then I had to really start to determine what is my price point, what is my time worth and where is my focus and what do I want to do? And so obviously it's a gradual scale, but once I made that mind shift, it went up really quickly. I'll still never forget, the first time somebody asked me, what do you charge? And I said $10,000. And as I said it, I thought in my heart, I'm like, there's no way. And the person's like, done, let's do this. And I still remember that moment. That was a real shift moment for me in my speaking career. But I could only say that because I had changed my belief. I had a message that I knew brought value. I believed one of the best at that message. And I went in and I spoke to 120 leaders on this topic, and the feedback was amazing. They got the value. I felt valuable. So it's a gradual scale, but the first thing you have to change is this.
Yeah, and I love that you said you worked with a coach on that, Peter. And I know you're coaching other people too, but I think it's that value mindset. I know we have a lot of coaches who tune in here too, but it's that value mindset of knowing and trusting your own personal value before you can put that out to the world. And it's awesome that you had the support to help you get there too, because sometimes it's really hard to do that alone.
Yeah. Yes. Honestly, I mean, I would take it a step further. I think it would have been impossible for me to get there without somebody helping me along the way.
That's incredible. So I think we touched on this a little bit too. Peter, I'm going to venture to guess that there's still nerves that come up sometimes or anxiety when you're in front of a crowd. So how do you work past that?
Yeah, I mean, really what I do is I channel those nerves into energy. So, I'm a speaker that everybody has kind of their style. One of my styles is I like to bring energy and belief, into what I'm speaking about. And so I really channel that nervousness into that. And, the most nervous I've ever been in my speaking career was in 2016 when I stepped on the Ellie Calkins Opera House stage, in front of 2,500 people. Where some of the largest performers in the world have performed from, and I'm on this stage, and I was speaker 13 of 13 speakers at the end of the day, so I had watched everybody all day long, and that's the most nervous I've ever been. And I stumbled on some words, I flubbed a few things, but man, I rocked authenticity and storytelling. And at the end, when they had us all line up, all the speakers, so that people could talk, my line was 10 times longer. And I believe it's because I was not this just scripted piece of material, but that I had taken this energy and I had flaws that were very present, but they believed everything I said because that energy was channeled into the passion and the belief. So to me, one of the things I do before I go out on stage is I say, what do I want this audience to leave with? How do I want them to be different? And so I visualize a few people in the audience. I'll actually kind of scope out and find a few people, and I'll visualize them as better people walking out the door. And that tends to take nervous energy and turn it into a lot of excitement. A good friend of mine, Matt Phillips, I know, he does a 2-minute power pose where he raises his hands, you know, in the back. It has an increase on cortisol levels and stress. So I know lots of people that do lots of different things.
Yeah, that's amazing, Peter. And I remember too, I love what you talked about. I mean, your message is authenticity. So of course you're going to show up authentic or you know, it seems fraudulent. But I remember one of the things I learned from you too is that perfect is the enemy of done. And so that's something I know that a lot of people come to me with, like, oh, but it has to be perfect. Well, people don't want perfection. None of us are perfect. And we want to see our own imperfections in other people. So I love that message.
Yep. Well, and you know, it's so, Monica, and this is one of my favorite things I've uncovered as I've written the book. It's one of my favorite ideas. And I remember when it first happened and I first saw it, and I didn't understand the impact until I wrote it into the book. And it was Antiques Roadshow. I don't know if you've ever seen Antiques Roadshow. So it's where these people bring their antiques to this convention center, and there's experts in every type of antique there. And so what they're doing is trying to uncover very valuable things that people didn't know they had. And so there was one person, and they had this beautiful metal vase, and they bring it up to this expert, and this expert said, your vase is worth about $12,000. And they were like, whoa. And he said, but it would have been worth close to $80,000, but you did something. And what they had done is they had polished off the patina. So they had made it pretty, but it was in making it pretty that they removed all of the value. The value was actually in the patina. It was in that ugly, it was in the thing that showed the age. That's where the value was. And how many times do we do that as people? We try to polish away to be perfect, and in doing so, a lot of times we remove all of the value.
I remember hearing that story, and it's just so amazing to think that it's this mess that they want to see. They want to hear the message, but they want to see that you're a real person, because that's what feels like somebody you actually trust, is not the one who is perfectly polished, but the one who maybe has a few ums and you-knows in the speech, or isn't perfectly on, or loses the train of thought here and there. That's okay. People connect with that.
Yeah. It's super important in becoming, I think, an effective keynote speaker moving forward in the future. Definitely. People look for it more and more.
How do you feel like you get people to take your message seriously?
100%. It's because I tell stories about myself. So I am the example for them. You know, I make it easy for them to be okay with being not okay. And so to me, you have to find something that connects to you, and you have to share that, because you have to show them the way. And so, you know, I tell a lot of vulnerability stories about failures I've had, about, you know, my upbringing and some things that weren't great. And I tell those stories to say, and I'm here now. So this stuff I'm talking to you about works. Okay. I'm the proof point. And then as I walk them along it, they believe me, because it's connected to me. So to me, that's why storytelling is so important. And in particular, finding out what's your story that you're going to share in a way that they can connect to, not just connect to, but also now believe.
Yeah, definitely. And sharing the crappy parts is what just like connects us with our humanity as well. And so I think you're absolutely right. That's where you make that connection. So I have to ask, Peter, because I put it in our little promo for this, can you tell us the marshmallow story?
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, it was always cool that I could turn this into a speech story, but what made it really cool was when my mentor, Mark Sanborn, told me that he is using it in his speeches. So at his 60th birthday party, he had about 100 people there, and he told this story. So I mean, that's the power of stories. But the marshmallow story is one day, it was a Friday, it was after work, a beautiful end of summer day in Colorado, and my girls came up to me and said, "Can we roast s'mores?" And I was like, I'm giddy inside because I'm like, yeah, I want to roast s'mores, but I need to be responsible. So I'm like, let me think about it. 5 minutes later, I'm like, yeah, let's go do it. So we go outside. Everybody's sitting outside. It's a beautiful night. We got fire pit going. We're roasting s'mores. Next thing I know, I look up and there's a flaming marshmallow flying towards my head. Now, granted, my head is a big target, so it's pretty easy to hit, but it lands right here, and it's like napalm. I mean, it's sticky, and so I'm peeling it off as it's burning. And I finally start to peel this off. My dress shirt, because I had just gotten back from work, was on fire, so I'm patting it out. I'm peeling it off. I end up having this huge scar. The whole family's around there. My 16-year-old son at the time, Cole, looks over at me and he goes, "Dad, you're an idiot." And the lesson was, I actually went to the grocery store to calculate what is the value, the cost of a marshmallow. And it's pennies. And yet my daughter, when it caught on fire, she got so frantic that she started waving it. She kind of lost her mind because she wanted to get it out. Now, how many times do we do that in our lives? How many times do we have things that the value is minimal? It's like, just throw it away. It's okay, but we turn it into something even bigger. So that's the flaming marshmallows in our life, and I experienced
it looks like the scars healed up real nice. I remember you coming into work that day and being like, "What happened?" Thank you for sharing that. That was such a powerful story, and I love that Mark is sharing that too. So, Peter, final question before I open it up for anyone's comments or questions is, if you are someone who is behind your computer still and you have this dream of like being a keynote speaker or doing a TED Talk, what is the first thing that piece of advice that you could give to them, the first thing they can do to move towards that goal?
Yeah, first thing, number one, is start to listen to other people who already do this really well. You need to learn from people who are great at this. I, for years, watched tons of videos and lots of people. I went to speeches, I went to conferences, and I wasn't just an attendee, I was a student, and I watched them. That's number one. Number two is start to put down on paper, what is your message? What is it that you're trying to say, and how does it separate itself from everyone else? Don't try to mimic people. Don't try to mimic Gary Vaynerchuk. Don't swear just to swear because it's what's working for some people. Be who you are. You've got to find your message. And then number three is start speaking. You have got to get out and practice. Now, if that means, I've done speeches for like 7 people at a company for free. I've done Chamber of Commerce's for free. I've done so many free speeches, but it's because this is a craft. You have got to hone it and you've got to practice. So those would be my three.
Peter, just get out there, watch other people, be more of a student when you're actually watching those people, and practice and just do it, because practice makes progress and habit and all of those good things. Well, Peter, what's on the horizon for you upcoming? What do you have going on right now?
Yeah, so for me, my business has changed a little. I'm really focused on coaching. I just signed my 5th coaching client last week. I have one more that I'm probably going to sign by the end of next month. So I want to have 6. And so that's one piece. And then the second piece is really expanding the thought leadership through keynote speaking. So I am doing a hard press on getting more speeches. I made a goal this year of 45 speeches. Right now I am like on track, maybe a half a speech behind, but I'm going to hit that goal this year, no question. Next year I want to do 60. And so I've set these goals and these marks for myself. And then the third piece is to finalize and get the book out. So we're still not sure when it's going to be out, but fingers crossed it'll be fairly soon. Yeah, the book is called The Ugly Advantage: Why you look good
Nice,
when you look
nice.
real.
And I'll drop that in the comments, and I'll drop in the comments too, Peter's social media page if anyone wants to go follow him. And I know you put out lots of great Facebook Lives and things along the way as well. So I love seeing that. I want to open it up at this point. I know we've got some great comments in here that people are just blown away with your analogies and that this is being really valuable. So this is awesome. What other comments or questions do you have for Peter or just about public speaking in general? Drop them in the comments. Yep, I will
And I
read them to
can't
you,
see,
no
so you'll have to
problem.
read them to me. Okay.
Of course.
Thanks, Monica.
And if anyone comes in here afterwards and watches the replay, just make sure you put hashtag replay in the comments so I know to come back and love up on those comments once you come back.
While you're looking, I'll share one other piece of advice. A lot of people, ask about on the TED Talk front, how do you, what's it take to get a TED Talk? And I will say it's one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah.
It's really hard. I probably applied for 100 to get one. And just to give you a little reference, there was over 1,200 submissions to TEDx Mile High the year I got selected, and they chose 13. So to give you perspective on why you have to do it, it is very competitive. But the biggest thing that they're looking for is the general mantra, which is an idea worth sharing. They want something that cuts through the noise and that grabs people's attention. So the title right out of the gate is probably one of the most important elements of your submission. My first 75 submissions, I didn't get hardly any traction on. I changed the title and I started to get some responses. So the title is a great thing.
And what was the title that you came up with for the one that actually got submitted and received?
Yeah, it was the cul-de-sac startup. Why suburbia is the next Silicon Valley.
And I'll drop a link to that in the comments as well, so you all can catch it if you didn't get a chance to before. It's a great video. Well, I don't see any comments except for thank yous here. So Peter, thank you so much. It was great to get to see you and talk with you. And I am just super stoked to get a chance to keep seeing all the awesome stuff you do. I'm going to throw in here also that Krista, Kathleen, and I are putting together a 9-week group coaching program all around public speaking. We're going to be covering a host of different topics, but drop me a message if it's something you're interested in learning more about. It's going to be super powerful. And I think we only have 8 or 9 slots available. So starting September 16th, it's coming up quickly. And I do have one comment here from Jonathan. It says, Peter, if you were to do a TED Talk on a different subject besides storytelling and authenticity, what would it be and why?
That's a great question. I think I've been talking a lot recently about conversation. We live in an age where I feel like there's so much information. We've kind of left the information age and we're entering the conversation age because there's so much white noise that the only way you get attention is by breaking through it. And the way it's happening is through conversation. Now, there are a lot of really bad methodologies for creating conversation that we're all seeing today. There's meanness. There's, just get people irate and irritated so that they fight. I believe there's a better way to have conversations. So I think my next one would probably be around that topic, which is, how do we build conversation that changes, but it's also healthy? So that's one that's awesome. Near and dear to me.
Thanks for sharing, Peter. Oh, all right. Well, go ahead.
And I will say, just Monica, just to give you guys, if anyone thinking to jump on this, obviously Monica on my team was just, fantastic at presenting and always did an amazing job with the team. So she's going to teach you some fantastic skills if you join this group.
Oh,
so I would
thank you so much, Peter. I didn't tell him to say that, I promise. Thank you so much, Peter. And it was such a privilege to get to meet you and just continue to connect with you. I love learning with and from you. So thank you for being available, making yourself available to us today to share this. And I look forward to keep following what you're doing in the future. Thank you.
Likewise,
and have a great day, everybody. Take care. Bye.